Great Appalachian Trail from New Hampshire to the Carolinas by Benton, MacKaye. Coffee Break Collection 32, Wilderness. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Great Appalachian Trail from New Hampshire to the Carolinas. From the New York Times, February 18, 1923. The Appalachian Trail is a proposed walking or hiking trail to extend through the length of the crest line of the Appalachian chain of mountains, from Maine to Georgia, from northward of Mount Washington in the New Hampshire White Mountains, to southward of Mount Mitchell in the Carolina Highland. The project is one in regional planning. It is being promoted by the American Institute of Architects through its Committee on Community Planning, of which Clarence S. Stein is chairman. The project was first proposed by the present author in the Institute's Journal for October 1921. It was discussed in detail at the New York and New Jersey Trail Conference, held in New York last Friday. And if things come to pass as the promoters dare to hope, the building of this trail will be merely the first step in the building of a people's Appalachian empire. And what excuse do we give for our imperial designs? Why, the same old excuse, outlet. Of surplus population? Perhaps so. The east sides of our cities would suggest the obvious need for highways of expansion. Or is it outlet of surplus soul which we require? The call of the frontier, that twilight zone between what is and what may be, lies deep within us. It is a pent-up, volcanic force in every human being. It cries aloud for work, and so it heeds the drumbeat. It cries for play, and so it seeks the dance hall. If surplus population, surplus body, demands its outlet, so does surplus soul. The flowers that bloom in the spring, tra-la, have something to do with the case. The outlet which we crave is the one they have attained, to be out in the sun. We would build a place there. Here is the work we crave, to build for ourselves on the frontier a better, a wider place in which to live a wider life. But how shall we approach this stupendous job? Is there some key to our imperial ambition? Geographically speaking, yes. The key to empire is transportation. The railway is the big steel key to a country's industrial development. Its ancient forerunner, the footpath, is the key to a country's recreational development. Our immediate empire is recreational. Our imperial dream, therefore, takes immediate tangible form in the transportation project. An American hinterland. The Appalachian Trail would traverse from north to south, from end to end, the back country of the Atlantic border, the hinterland formed by the Appalachian Range. Other mountainous hinterlands are offered by America, such as the Rocky Mountain and the Cordilleran. But the Appalachian, more than the others, is of national significance, for it penetrates the populous portion of the nation. In climate, resources, peoples, it epitomizes in large degree the American continent. Its area would cut a big slice from the empire of ancient Rome or from that of modern Germany. The gist of empire making, for the purposes at hand, is the care of the countryside. Herein lies the basis of true patriotism. Why the cry, my country, and not my city or my government? Because these others come and go, but our country stands eternal. It is our common ground and footing. So the biggest material conception which a people is called upon to make is a geographic one. Patria is country, and patriotism is countryism. We hear little of the latter except in time of war. But if our country is worth fighting for in times of war, why is it not worth caring for in times of peace? War patriotism has been advertised, but everyday patriotism has not. Everyday patriotism, the care of the country, is the fundamental principle of empire-making for the people. Forest fire protection. The first care of our country, as the first care of our city or our home, is to keep it from burning up, which means, in this case, forest fire protection. For the Appalachian country, in most part, is a forest country. The forest is, or will be, the main resource. The picturesque grazing industry, both of cattle and sheep, has great possibilities throughout the Appalachian Range. Once a thriving occupation, there are coming signs of its return. But grazing in the upland pastures and agriculture in the bottom valleys will by and large be secondary to the great future industry of forestry. So the very first care of the Appalachian country is that of forest fire protection. And in order that the Appalachian Trail and the folk that use it may from the first become an asset and not a liability in such protection, the trail system must be conceived also as a fire system. And this is very simple because the basis of any scheme of forest fire protection consists of forest trails or roads. The first thing needed in forest firefighting is accessibility, the means of reaching the fire. Trails should run along the crest lines and roads along the valleys, these to be connected every little way by counter roads or trails up and down the slopes. The next thing is fire apparatus, picks and shovels, and perhaps extinguishers, cached in big boxes at convenient points along the ways. Having tools and a clear way, all that is needed next is men. Patrollers stationed at strategic lookout points, equipped with map, field glass, and telephone, give the alarm when smoke is first sighted. They call up the local fire warden who lives in the valley or nearby town. He then calls his men together, the firefighters, paid or voluntary, who hold themselves ready to run and go at the drop of the hat. Fire systems of this sort are kept up by the United States Forest Service on all the national forests, several of which are in the Appalachian Mountains. They are also maintained by the various states. Part of the organization of the Appalachian Trail would consist of unifying and extending these forest fire services. This would enlarge and correlate the forest fire prevention work now being developed in cooperation with the various forest officials of state and nation. If fire is the first enemy of the forest country, devastation is the second. But forest devastation is our present American practice. We cut down the forests 3 times faster than they grow. We treat the forest not as a crop of wood, but as a deposit of wood. And just as we mine the coal deposits below ground, so do we mine the wood deposits above ground. We shovel out the coal and leave the coal mine empty, and we shovel out the timber and leave the forest valley empty of timber and of a timber industry, empty of workers and of population. The opposite of forest mining is forest culture or forestry. This cuts from the forest valley each year only as much timber as grows there each year, so the valley never becomes empty of timber, industry, or folks. Forest culture, therefore, is a big principle in empire making. It would restore to the country not only the forests, but the folks. Many an Appalachian hill town has fewer families today than 100 years ago. It has been wrecked through forest mining. It can be restored through forest culture. The might-be empire of the Appalachian country is a land of hidden treasure. Millions of acres await reclamation, not alone for timber raising, but for sheep and cattle raising, for grazing on the hillsides, and for farming in the valleys. Whole valleys remain empty, which might be alive with thriving communities. The reclamation thus of millions of acres would mean the restoration of thousands of homes. And the approach to a restored East is a continuous highway, as the Overland Trail was the approach to the opening West. So much for possibilities and aspirations, but empire was ever an elusive dream. How shall we bring it all about? What are the possibilities for making a start, and who shall take the lead? For one thing, the job should not be left wholly to technicians. The forester, the engineer, the architect, the landscape architect, the agriculturalist, each has his big part in this development. But there is something even bigger, for without the will to do which comes from the people at large, the technician's hands are tied. The amateur, as a representative of the people, is needed quite as much as the technician. He is needed, not to look on, but to take part, to take his hand in plan and survey. And if he goes astray, the expert can correct. The professional should guide, but the amateur should do. Connect old roots. The first step is to study the work already accomplished. For hundreds of miles, the path is already made for us. Mountain and forest trails of one sort or another riddle the Appalachian ranges. In large part, therefore, to make the trail will consist of choosing which path to take. Scouting plans are being made along the range to show which paths are best. And of course, a lot of cutting will have to be done. Trail cutting is an old story to the trail fans in various eastern sections. In New England, 2,008 miles of through trails have now been cut. This mileage is less than that of the whole Appalachian Trail as projected from New Hampshire to Georgia. The expense of these trails is borne by each local organization. The idea of the Appalachian Trail is merely to get people to unify their paths along one big line instead of leaving them to run helter-skelter. And they seem to like the idea. Scouting on the projected line of the Appalachian Trail made unexpected progress during the last summer in sections from New England to Virginia. There are, of course, 1,001 practical difficulties to be overcome. An important one is the matter of getting permission to cross private lands. For several hundred miles, the trail will be on public land, state or national, and here the problem is solved. On private property, experience has shown that through proper approach and understanding, permission is usually granted. There are exceptions, of course, and certain lands may have to be detoured. The chief reason for refusal is fear of forest fires. It is a reasonable fear, and the answer to it is preparation of the kind described to make the trail a factor of fire protection. The end in view is to open up a realm. To do this requires the development gradually, by purchase under the Weeks Law, of more national forests. We should have indeed one big national forest, a supranational forest, covering the Appalachian country from end to end. This does not mean that all the forest and mountain land should literally be in federal ownership. Much might be state or town-owned, but enough should be in public hands to make of the Appalachian region a national or people's sphere of influence. Here, in a word, is our campaign, to attain the first two mighty steps toward empire: 1, transportation, and 2, sphere of influence, an Appalachian Trail and a supranational forest. And the empire of our ambition is the realm of the crest line. This is something more than a geographical location. It is an environment. It is the environment not of road and hotel, but of trail and camp. It is human access to the sources of life. And in this access, the camp is as vital as the trail. We cannot truly live within our empire unless we provide for night as well as day. The trail which provides alone for going does not wholly function. Unless it have its wayside shelter camp, it fails to give full access to the country. Underworld and overworld. And the camp which provides alone for shelter does not wholly function. It may give access to the country, but that is only half of the potential power of our realm. Under proper guidance and protection, the recreational power of the day's walk on the trail could be doubled by the evening spent in camp. Herein lies access not only to the country, but to a whole new social life. Down here in the cities, where most of us now live, we have a social life of many patterns. These go by numerous names, such as the club life, and the cafe life, and the tenement life, and whatnot. And we refer to the lot of some of our less fortunate neighbors as the life of the underworld. But in a sense, however respectable our lives may be, the life of all of us folk down here, beneath the mountain basis, is a life of the underworld. Hence the obvious need to develop above these mountain bases, up in the realm of the crest line, a life of a different stratum, a life of the overworld. Thus should our guide boards read. It will be a long, long path, and the Appalachian Trail is only the first link. But it makes a start. The scouting of this trail and the fields to which it leads is something to make for immediate fun as well as ultimate welfare. Something to stimulate in the public mind a clean-cut vision of constructive national development as against a fog of economic vagaries. Something to serve as a constructive outlet for the high-powered spirit of youth. Not to absorb energy, but to attain a goal, the goal of empire, a better deal, a place in the sun. Such is the outlet sought through the Appalachian Trail. End of Great Appalachian Trail from New Hampshire to the Carolinas. Recording by Colleen McMahon.